William Gibson once said, "The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed." The time has come to draw attention to science fiction stories written all over the planet. Stories made of different languages, colors, shapes, hopes and beliefs. The future happens everywhere. That's why we are here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to FutureCon. Well, this is the third panel of the third day, and we just very happy to welcome you to our little space in the cyberspace. Today's panel is Future Matters: Small Presses and Magazines Doing Big Things. And I would like to start with a little intro for those of you who don't know what FutureCon is or are not familiar with it. It's an international convention, free and international convention taking place for the second time in 2021. This year, we want to engage with even more native innovators and storytellers that make science fiction happen and flourish in their own languages and markets. We want to build the tools that will reshape our own imagination, set up creative networks, and make room for independent voices, crafting publishing alternatives and self-sustainable connection to decolonize the future in an event with 50 authors from 20 countries. I wanted to start thanking ALCIF, the Chilean Association of Science Fiction and Fantasy. Hi, Arturo, Leo, and JP for providing the tech support. Please visit our website and www.futureconsf.com to check the program and the panels from this edition and last year's edition, and follow us in our social media through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and of course, our YouTube channel. I want just to remind you that FutureCon, it's a free convention. We appreciate your donations to maintain our page and the streaming platform. If you feel like contributing through our website, you're more than welcome. And first, I just want to introduce briefly myself. I'm Cristina Jurado for the Anglophones. I'm from Spain. I'm a bilingual speculative fiction writer, editor, and promoter. I've been editing SuperSonic magazine for the last 6 years. I was international editor for Apex magazine for a while. And I also edited a few anthologies in my country, as well as the Apex Book of World Speculative Fiction #5. In this panel, we're going to speak about a relatively unknown species in the ecosystem of science fiction and speculative fiction with the science fiction element. We're going to talk about small presses and magazines. Because despite their size, these fearless entities have been able to accomplish impressive things, but little is known about their challenges and expectations. So this panel is going to try to bring light into this. And I am with an amazing panel of guests, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you, for those of you who don't know them. I'm going to start with Libia Brenda from Mexico. Hi, Libia.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful convention.
Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I am, I write, I translate, I am starting to translate a bit, and I am an editor. I have been doing books, making books as a craft from the last, probably 25 years of my life. And I have been involved in a lot of science fiction projects along the years, especially independent projects here in Mexico. I was part of the Mexicanex initiative in 2018 that John Picasso launched. And I became the first Mexican woman in have a Hugo nomination for for a project that I edited and we make together, and which is this, that is free and you can download it and read it. And in the 3rd of April, this 2021, in the context of the end of the world, I launched a new project called Odo Editions. That is a very small and very indie indie press, like a publishing house. Like, we talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you, Livia. We're going to talk a lot about it. We also have with us Mazi Nwonwu from Nigeria, and he's going to talk about a little bit himself and Omenana, maybe. Hi, Mazi.
Hi, thank you for having me. So my name is Mazi Nwonwu. That's my pen name, though. My real name is Chiagoze Fred Nwonwu. I'm the co-founder of Omenana. Omenana is a magazine for speculative fiction, open for submissions from writers from Africa and the African diaspora. We made it that way because we felt this is a demography that is not well represented in space. So we felt we needed to have a space where people coming from Africa and beyond who are of African origin can submit their stories. So we set up Omenana in 2014. I and Chinelo Onwalo. I also write speculative fiction. My own time. I don't do it as well as I want to do it because I'm also a journalist. I work for BBC Language Service in Nigeria. So that's what takes up most of my time. So whenever I find free time, I write or I edit on Omenana. So we've had Omenana since 2014. We're about to launch our 19th edition. Hopefully by the end of September, that's going to come out. We are actually editing the story at the moment. So that's a summary of who I am. So thank you very much for having me here today.
I was telling Mazi before we started the panel that maybe he doesn't know that, but Omenana has been a huge inspiration for SuperSonic, the small magazine that I edit, me and the editorial team edit in Spain. So I just wanted to let him know that maybe he didn't know he had a huge impact also in somebody we never met. And I am so happy that I'm also happy to welcome Eliana González from Paraguay and Constelación magazine. Hi, Eliana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry I was a few minutes late. The time changed in Chile, and I wasn't aware that it changed the panel time as well. But thank you for letting me know at the last minute. So yeah, with the help of Libia and Cristina, we edit, Constelación magazine. We are a bit behind on our issues, but we are still working strong with them. And Constelación is a bilingual speculative fiction magazine that publishes stories in Spanish and in English. And we take stories in either language. So if you submit one in Spanish, it will be translated to English and vice versa. And I'm super happy to be here. Super excited about this panel.
Thanks for being with us, Eliana. I'm super excited too that you can join the conversation because I think we're going to talk a little bit down the line about what Constelación means and this model of a bilingual magazine, which I think is very interesting. And we have, last but not least, Francesco Verso from Italy and Future Fiction. Welcome, Francesco. Ciao.
Ciao, Cristina, and welcome everybody. It's always a pleasure to meet people from all over the world. That's kind of a mission of the last 10 years in my life. And I've personally started as a science fiction writer. I won a couple of Italian science fiction awards. I won a Golden Dragon Award for the promotion of international science fiction. And over the last 7 years, I've published on a small press, which is a cultural association, really, called Future Fiction. More than 160 stories coming from more than 35 countries and in translation for 13 languages. In a way, I'm very happy and very proud of this enterprise. But on the other side, I realize that I'm probably one of the very few I've been really scouting and looking for other projects like this, and with my big regret, I haven't found, because I don't want to do that on my own and alone, but I would really love to join forces with other small presses and bring the idea not of equity but of justice in the science fiction world, which has been dominated over the last 80 years by one single culture and one single language. And we'll talk more about that.
Mm-hmm. And precisely kind of like tackling on what you were talking, and you were expressing your sadness because there's no other initiatives like yours, or you haven't found any. This is precisely what I wanted to start talking, and how we can kind of like bring into the conversation. I would like to know a little bit more about how is the situation in your own country in terms of the landscape of small presses and magazines, because I can speak about Spain, for example, but I have no idea what's happening in other countries in Europe, much less what's happening in the other side of the Atlantic Ocean or in Africa. So that's why I think it's very important also for our viewers to kind of get a sense of where are we. To start the conversation, we need to know where we stand. Yeah. So maybe we can, whoever wants to jump in, please feel free to start. Who wants to go first?
Well, mine will be the shortest one, because Paraguay doesn't really have a SFF landscape. There are very few people who write SFF. I think there's a lot more work being done in comics and manga than in like short stories or novels for SFF. But South America in general, I do see that there's more interest in SFF as a genre. I'm not so sure about the magazine part of that side, because I'm not too familiar with publications. One that is new that I'm super excited about is EITA, which is a Brazilian magazine that also started like maybe last year or a few years ago. And they're publishing stories in Portuguese and English, I think now. So that's one. But I'm not too familiar with a lot of them. And I'm super happy that EITA exists. Constelación isn't in itself Paraguayan. It's a joint venture between Coral Moore, who is my co-editor, and me. And it's international, let's say. It's not really from Paraguay. But yeah, the landscape here isn't good, like particularly in Paraguay, at least.
I just wanted to jump in for a second to say that we had we were expecting to have Sergio Motta with us from Mafagafo from Brazil, from this magazine, but he couldn't make it. It would be great to have also his input on this. So, who else wants to tell us about their own countries?
Si quieren, yeah. Thank you. So in Mexico, there is like in the 90s where a lot of like stuff happening and conventions and fan scenes were really where most movement were, and then there was a period like with not much movement, and now again online there are some magazines and some publications, but there is no publishing any publishing house in Mexico has like a dedicated branch to just speculative fiction, fantasy, etc. And there has been attempts, but really there is not in commercial edition. There is a lot of translations. And big publishing houses bought those translations. They buy the translations and they sell it, and it's a very commercial thing. But there is not a real space just dedicated in the publishing industry, just dedicated to speculative and fantasy and etc. So a little bit, although Ediciones, I believe it's an attempt to do that in a very small scale. There are some new publishing houses, also very, very small, that are also specializing in the genre. But actually, a lot of people don't really know there is a lot of publications, because there are very small and indie, and also the magazines that are online are also indie and small. So we are kind of building up that opportunities to publish more in a dedicated way. There are publishing houses that have some Mexican authors like Almadía or like Paraíso Perdido that are not specifically dedicated to the genre, but they are including Mexican authors in their collection. Sorry. So yeah, I think we are building up.
And they still try to prefer to translate from I guess English speaking authors
Commercially,
before
yes.
their own local authors, right?
Yeah, that like if you compare the number of Mexican authors that are speculative or fantasy authors, and you compare it with the number of English authors, English language authors translated to Spanish, there is like a huge, but I mean huge difference. And a lot of big houses and more traditional and more commercial houses have no clue about all this, about that what is happening on the margins. So it's a little bit, in that regard, it's a little bit less. Well, yeah, we are in the margins, basically. We are the underdogs still, from a commercial perspective. Yeah.
It seems that it's quite universal. I think that situation in Spain, for example, it's not exactly like this, but it's in some instances I see similarities. We have a lot of very, very, very small publishing companies who are specialized in SSF, in even horror, but they're very small and they cannot normally compete with big publishing companies. And I have to say that little by little, we are building also a market for magazines. There's no as many as, for example, in the US or in the Anglophone circuit, but little by little, we are seeing more and more. And I think I would like to think that it's a sign of good health, or we're getting better. Because for so long in my country, there was very little science fiction being promoted and published. So I can relate what was happening in Mexico. I don't know if maybe Mazi wants to jump in to let us know what's happening in Nigeria.
Okay. For us in Nigeria, Omenana is a lone, like very lonesome place for us, and not just in Nigeria but in Africa, especially when it has to do with speculative fiction. We are about the only magazine in Africa that actually accepts only speculative fiction stories. There are a lot of other magazines who are open to all kinds of submission, but when it comes to just accepting science fiction, fantasy, magic realism, it's just Omenana that we have. Like in Nigeria, we have British paper, which have done a whole lot of work in showcasing writers to the world, but they accept all kind of stuff, whether it's science fiction, fantasy, literary fiction, any kind of work. So that's why Omenana is alone. We are hoping that more magazines are going to pop up that are going to be more into the genre. But at the moment, we don't have any other than Omenana. We've had others before, like Jungle Gym in South Africa, but I don't think they are like as constant as they used to be in the past. There's a magazine called Chimarunga that was funded by a Cameroonian journalist based in South Africa that also did very good work in putting out some stories that have to do with the speculative, but not as much as we would have wanted them to do. So Omenana remains like alone in that field. So we're hoping that in the future it's going to change, and we're encouraging them to also join us by setting up magazines like we have within Africa or within Nigeria, but at the moment, none. I can mention some other magazines that we have. Many of them are in Nigeria. We had Saraba. Saraba was the first magazine that publish a science fiction story that I wrote. A Vera magazine turned it down because we've had that issue in the past where acceptance is an issue. So you write a story that is speculative in nature and you openly target speculative fiction, maybe science fiction or horror or fantasy, and you send it to a magazine and they'll be like, no, we don't publish this sort of stuff. So that was one of the challenges that we met that made us to set up Omenana when we did. But Saraba published a science fiction story I wrote some years back. They're not as active as they were in the past. I think one thing that tends to happen a lot is that people set this matter up as a thing of passion, but then work comes into play, family comes into play, and you find people moving away to pay more attention to their work or pay more attention to their families, and this magazine suffer. So we've had a lot. We have two big magazines. I'll call them big because they're actually set up by writers doing well. In Nigeria, we have Open Country that came out, I think, 2 years back. And we have another one. Rollway is a Kenyan magazine set up by writer Troy. That magazine is actually doing well. I think both the Troy himself got nominated for the Ken Prize. Ken Prize is about the biggest prize in Africa now for short stories. So it's one of the magazines that is also out there doing well, not specific to speculative fiction, if that's one of the things we are looking at today. But it's not an empty field, so to say, and it's not like lonesome when we are looking at other aspects of literature. But if we're looking at speculative fiction, it's very lonesome for us. So yeah, so that's where we are coming from.
And is it? I think it's Omenana who's planning to have some kind of version of French. Yeah.
So we've done that experiment in the past. We've got, there's this French writer that tends to write for us for about 2-3 years back. So whenever he sends in a story, he sends in a French version of that story, and we used to publish it side by side. So, but a couple of months ago, a writer, Mom was thinking about setting up a French version of Omenana, more or less, not something for the Francophone speaking part of Africa. And we spoke about it and said, okay, instead of him going out to just set it up without, because it's something that you need to start little by little, then you now get people to like buy in. So we did this sort of a test run that we did with the last edition, where he did a call out for people who are writing in French, and people wrote, and they shortlisted, and we ended up publishing just one of the stories. We are doing the same for the next edition of Omenana. We're also going to publish a French story in it. But unlike in the past when we have an English version, this one is purely in French. So we're doing that too. Because the idea is a lot of people who write in French don't have the platform with which to submit their stories in Africa. So we're hoping that this is going to lead to setting up that platform away from Omenana that will just be specific to people who write in French. And that's ongoing as we speak.
And this is very interesting and kind of like related to what Livia was saying a little bit, and also Eliana, which is that we are trying to do what nobody is doing because we are at the margins, and there's we have the sense that so much is going on that it's not getting the attention it should, and it's kind of getting lost among the noise. We're trying to give this platform, as you were saying, Mazi, and I think it's amazing. I think that what you're doing on Nana is fantastic, and it's a good example of how things progress little by little and get even bigger, in the sense that it's ambitious. It's ambitious what you're doing, even if it's in small operation, but it's an ambitious project and very necessary. So I wanted just to make sure that everybody knows that what you're doing, and because I think Mami mentioned it in another panel, or I read it. And I wanted to also ask Francesco what he can say about Italy.
Yeah, the situation of Italy is kind of exemplary for many other countries, in the sense that in science fiction, The big industry is just interested in commercial fiction, which means accepting whole lists of commercial books from the, the winners of the Hugo and Nebula Award and going down to what they can buy, which is pretty simple, pretty easy. Anybody can do that. No scouting, no research, nothing at all, which is out of the usual names. In the indie presses, there is something, of course, of more scouting, more research, more attention to the quality of the books, but nobody is translating from any other language than the English one. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody. That doesn't apply just to Italy. I've been really traveling many countries, and the French have the same situation. The Spanish probably have the same situation. The Russians have the same situation. Most of Latin America has the same situation. China has the same situation. The whole world is depending on the production of a single market. It could be wide, of course, it could be diverse, but it's not inclusive. Just to say that 3% of what is published in the US comes from non-English language. And in that 3% are included all the languages of the world. And just to say another thing, consider the index of how much it takes for an English bestseller to be translated into 25 or 30 languages, probably 6 months when Harry Potter, or I'm not even saying these huge ones, but I don't know, N.K. Jemisin, immediately translated in 15 languages. And how much time does it take for a wonderful, amazing book of science fiction which has not had the opportunity and the luck to be written in the dominant language to be translated into that language? Probably will never happen. Or it will need and require so much pushing, so much investment, so much effort that it's just one out of, 10,000, 20,000, I don't know. Of course, in other genre, this is not so bad, but in science fiction, it looks like the most advanced and avant-garde and inclusive, and the genre that should go where nobody has gone before is really going nowhere. Nowhere since 80 years. Of course, there have been some exceptions to the rules, but they are exceptions that demonstrate the basic rule that if you don't have success in terms of numbers, the quality of the book itself doesn't care and interest anybody. And I said this in China when Liu Cixin, after a couple of years, he was winning the Hugo Award. And I said, do you really think that that book would have been translated if it didn't sell 5 million copies in China? They wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. So this is the problem, that books don't circulate because of what's in the book. And I am a publisher, so the most important thing that I do is scout for quality. And with future fiction, what I'm trying to do is map the best authors from all the countries. They don't have the access to these networks, and they don't have the visibility. And I'm trying to build networks of translators from Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Greek, Turkish, Polish, many other, 13, just to show that it is possible, because the cost of a translation from English to Italian, for example, and from French to Italian, and from Spanish to Italian, and from German to Italian, is basically the same. So we're talking about cultural laziness. We're talking about promoting a self-perpetuating idea of the future, which is not real, because the future outside of the closed gate of the English language is very different. Because one thing is to talk about cyberpunk in high-tech Tokyo, and another thing is to do it in Nigeria. And I know, because I read Chinelo Nwonwu, I read Mazi Nwonwu, I read all the guys from there. And that's the thing. I mean, if you want to represent the future, you go out there and look for the future. You don't wait for a submission to come in your comfort zone of English language. If you do it, you know that you are kind of watching the future from one color, one frequency, one single taste. And it could be good, but be aware of that. You're representing a distorted picture of the future.
And this is why FutureCon and this kind of conversations are necessary, because we try to bring to the world other visions of the future. I don't like to talk about the future. I always talk about the futures, because
Yes.
I think everybody has a different approach to it. We should. I mean, I think it's very sad to think about there's only one version of the future, and everybody's going to go through that. I think it's very, very sad, and it says very little of ourselves as creatures that are capable of imagining and creating. And this is exactly one of the questions that we were kind of like thinking when preparing the panel. It's a little down the list, but I'm gonna just bring it up because I think it kind of like connects with what we were talking. In your opinion, in your experience, what is the place of small press and magazines in building their futures? And do you think it's necessary? Do you think we have a chance? Do you think that others are going to join in? Do you think that things are going to get fragmented? What do you think? Who wants to start?
Okay, let me go first. I think I always say this, that one of the major reasons why I say it all the time, and I think I've said it here before, but I'm going to repeat myself again. The major reason why we started Omenana was to give writers a space that is their own, because we feel one of the most important things when building a future is having a place from which you can start that building. So if a writer in, let's say, Liberia, who is interested in science fiction, doesn't even know how to send his first story to, let's say, one of the big established magazines, Omenana would be a place for them to send it to editors who understand where they are coming from, who understand the context within which they are writing, and who are going to help them get their work to how well it can be. Therefore, they can now get to wherever they want to get to. And it's been an experience for us that we have become like a stepping stone for some of the new generation of writers who are coming out of Africa, especially those who are paying serious attention to fantasy or science fiction. So yes, places like us and others here are very, very, very important for whatever conversation that needs to be had or that should be had about whatever future we are going to. Because you said something here, Cristina, about how the future is like it's being shaped by one narration. So we are here to make sure, even though we are small, even though we may not get as much respectability or acceptability as we should, but we exist. So we are making sure by one drop of idea that we get, that is just not one narrative that is out there. The internet is open to everybody, so we know that one day somebody is going to search and come to us and read this. Is going to probably change their mind or let them understand that, look, it's just not this one story that are there. So that's one thing that I think makes us very, very important. And that's why we, since we started in 2014, have tried so hard to be consistent, to remain, no matter how difficult it gets, because we think it's vital that we are here and that our stories are told. Because if we are not here, those stories are not going to get told.
Exactly.
So that's why we're here.
Exactly, and this is what connecting to what we were saying before, that somebody has to do this. Somebody has to do this. Otherwise, we are stuck with the same situation, with the same publishers publishing the same lists, not giving the opportunity to other voices. And I think we have. I mean, I know maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but because I've consider myself very privileged because I can do what I like. I think I have, at least I feel it this way, a responsibility to give voice to those who can't, afford to start a small magazine. I mean, you have to invest your time, and you have to invest, well, some resources to do this, and it's not easy when you have to have a day job, etc., etc. So to me, I always thought that that I had art in a way, well, no, not in a way. I think art is political in every way, but in my case also is a way of activism, in the sense that you have to make it worth in terms of what are you doing in society. And it's not just writing, even though writing is important. It's also giving opportunities, and giving platforms, and giving a chance, giving possibilities. And I don't know for you guys, but I think this is why I consider very important small presses and magazines. And also, I'm a big fan of short stories. I think short stories are the seeds that we need to create bigger stories sometimes, or just wonderful pieces. It doesn't have to be always big, but really having magazines, for example, or anthologies, gives the opportunity to many people to showcase their stories, showcase their work, and give a flavor of a certain topic, or certain movement, or certain subgenre, which is very important to have in a healthy landscape of literature. So this is what I wanted just to say before somebody else jumps in.
So I agree. I agree with everything. Now, in Mexico, I see that we need to focus more in the Mexican authors, I think, and I think it's necessary to create those spaces, and I think it's necessary to build more like a more strong maybe landscape. It's also the word here. Now, usually we associate ideas like success, or like selling a lot of books with what is best. And in the project that I am building in Otro Ediciones, we are kind of doing the opposite. Like I have this like parameter that what commercial publishing houses do, and I I am going in the other, and I am going in the other direction, because I think that if we are going to create spaces, we need to focus in Mexico. We need to focus in what now it's considered the Mexican territory, that includes hundreds of indigenous languages, and I mean hundreds, and a lot of richness, a lot of cultural products are in languages that are not Spanish, that are indigenous, and we are not paying attention to that. And we are trying to also in Mexicona, which is like also a little con that we are going to have later in September. We are trying to establish conversations with people that luckily for us, they are bilingual. We are monolingual. We just speak Spanish, and of course we speak English. But I am now looking like to the inside, and I think it's very important to clean our minds or our concepts from the capitalist parameters like success and money. And it's like, okay, what do I want? Do I want to be like to sell millions of books? Well, everybody wants to sell a lot of books, but I don't think that is the important task here. Culturally, the important task, it's far away from capitalism. And I always end up having these like rants about how the system is so putrid, and we need to invent new ways and new things. And in this moment, I think it's more important to focus in Mexico and to focus in building bridges with all the Latin American countries, including Brazil, and not to try. I want to focus more my efforts into building bridges with Colombia, with Paraguay, with Brazil, with a lot of countries that are south to Mexico. And I think that is way more important right now than to try to, I don't know, go to the United States market, which is a goal for many people, and it's very good. But I think that how many speakers, how many Spanish speakers there are in the world? And if I just publish books in Spanish, my God, I'm gonna have I can reach a lot of people. And also there are a lot, we can build those bridges with Portuguese language, with Italian, with French, with another Latin-based languages, before trying to go to the English, which I am not denying that I wanted to do. I'm just saying we need to focus, we need to change our focus, we need to rebuild our expectations. And I think that is very important right now, because small presses and small magazines and small projects can do that, can build community. And I mean real community. This is a type of community. But also, one thing that I am very happy, it's a good example of this that I am saying, the printing house, the place in where I printed the first book of all Ediciones, which is this. The guy, it's literally 2 houses from mine. Literally, he is my neighbor. I literally can just put on a sweatshirt and go and knock his door. That is, to me, that is I don't know, that is if I write a short story and an editor has the printer house in the same block, nobody's going to believe me. I am living it. And I think those type of things that are very small, and that in this case it's like an anecdote, are very important, because it's more important to me having good terms with the printer than to think, oh my God, when am I going to translate my first book into the English? It's like, okay, I have to go step by step, and I have to have goals that really are shaping that future that you are talking about. And I think because the world is ending, and the climate crisis and everything, if we are going to have hope, we need to build communities. And for building communities, we need to get close to people that are close to us. So I hope that makes sense. But I think that that is a future I would like to see, even if I don't live to see it, I would like to see more people getting stronger communities and knowing more their own authors and the authors that are in their own languages. And just in Latin America, the diversity of SFF, it's amazing, and their own voices and their own cultural influences and their own influences from indigenous languages. So it's a landscape, I'm not gonna be able to see everything. And that doesn't mean that I don't want to read the Jemisin or Nedio Corafor, or Right now I am part of a fellowship that it's from the Arizona State University, that is the Center for the Science and the Imagination, and we are 4 people. One writer, Hannah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Onoguye, it's from Nigeria. Xiagia, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's she is from China. Vandana
Sing.
Yeah, she lives in the United States, but originally she's from India. And myself, that I am Mexican, and the 4 of us are part of this climate fiction fellowship, and we come from very different backgrounds, but at the same time we are building fictions that are tackling the climate crisis and that type of future. So I think those things are so valuable. But it's good that people with resources and with this type of reach, they can reach different publics. But here in Mexico, sitting in this chair that you're seeing now, I think I have to focus more in building community, and then see how can I reach, for instance, Constellation or projects that I have with people, with wonderful people in Brazil, that are now friends of mine, thanks to another convention that they built, the 2020. We are doing stuff, and little by little, we are having projects in the back burner, and we try to also reach more publics. But yeah, I think building bridges between Latin America is fundamental, also between Spain and Latin America, and then try to probably. I will be way more interested in publishing in Italy, for instance, or to be in an alliance with Francesco, because I know the market from the United States is always going to be there, and it's going to be equally difficult to get there because of all the cultural and monetary barriers.
Yeah.
But also, I know that it can be done because we also have also those bridges can also going on. So, yeah, that's my that's my opinion.
Well, Constelación is pretty much that as a concept. Constellation was like the unifying thing between stars. Like even as a concept, the magazine is about unifying things. And on a more personal level, for me, it was, I want someone who's 15 or 16 years old to go on Google and I want to be a writer. What can I write? I want to write short stories. I want to write in these genres. Where do my stories belong? Because I never had that. I always have this conflict in my head between what language I want to write in, because for some reason short stories come easier to me in Spanish. I tend to never finish longer things in English. And one of our main goals was to tell people, we want your stories. We want your stories from I don't know, Chaco, from the Chaco, Paraguay and Chaco. We want your stories from places where you think no one will care about what you have to say for whatever reason, because you're not used to seeing it in the bookshelves or on TV or whatever social media you use. That was the main goal for Constelación, and it's amazing because from the short time that we've been here, these two issues that the second one is done, it will come out very soon. There are stories from all over the world, and we've gotten answers from some authors who are like I can't believe that you want this weird little story from I don't even know where. And yeah, that's exactly what we want, because that was always our goal. And about language-wise, what I feel is like we're still using English as that connecting barrier, I guess. That's why we're very insistent on that. You can, like, my super dream is that maybe we get, I don't know, all stories in Spanish that are just translated to English someday. But we get both. And it's also fine because there are, for example, a lot of authors who only speak English and are trying to kind of like honor their culture. And they love to see their stories translated into Spanish because that way their relatives or people who don't read English can also access them. So yeah, that was our goal with Constelación. And I'm so happy that we were able to start it because I think it is striving to get to that goal someday. Maybe we won't live to see the results someday, but hopefully it will do something.
Can I add something? It's, of course, good and healthy to try to grow your national community of writers. The problem is how you feed them, because if you feed them with the books that are now available, and if you go in any bookstore in any country, in any city of the world, you will see basically the same composition of the shelf made of Asimov, Bradbury, Ursula Le Guin. With all due respect, Philip K. Dick and Robert Heinlein and Robert Silverberg, and maybe some contemporary like Kim Stanley Robinson, right? Or N.K. Jemisin. Great authors, but the net cultural loss of not having translated the amazing people that I found around the world, like, I don't know, Pepe Rojo or Olivier Paquet or Michalis Manolios or Uwe Post or Caterina Bacillo. I'm mentioning people that are now contemporary science fiction writers in other languages than the English one. I think it's big. Even because our definition of quality becomes smaller and smaller, and it gets flattened onto these standards that are kind of reflecting the gatekeepers that are choosing these books, and then on the other side, they are kind of promoting them on a wider public, trying to, I'm not saying imposing, because there's no, uh, uh, strategy to do it, but it's the natural things. If you are grown up with the mythology and the legends of one culture, of course you grow up probably giving up your own. Probably you forget your roots. Probably you don't even know your name. And probably somebody might ask you to write more in the culture of the gatekeeper. And one single centimeter at the time, you are trying to give up, give up, give up. For what? For what? Maybe for what Arturo here said, for money. And of course, that is a fair trade-off. But are you sure that the money compensate the loss that you have in your writing, in your identity, in your knowledge, in your history, in your wisdom? Are you not sticking up feathers to just become like the chicken that they want to sell? I think art is something different. I think art requires a publisher that wants to invest in you because you have something to say, not the other way around, that I let you do what I want you to write. So I think that now the commercial publishing has taken over the world. And it's the role, as Cristina said, of the small presses to try to resist and fight back and try to, be the little mouse that move around these huge elephants that try to, smash everything. And we are fast and we can create networks. As Leonardo said, the pandemic showed us that we can use the power of the net to communicate and create bridges and wireless bridges. They're the best ones. So I think the time is right now to include, to give more opportunities, but in order to do that, we need to translate. We need to consider the fact that the stories are not naturally born in English, that there is a layer of professional people that are doing the cultural intermediaries that are able to bring back these treasures from their language, from the language they study, into our own language. And in this respect, we need to disentangle ourselves from the English language. I don't mean that we have to separate, of course, but disentangle the Anglophone magnetism that attracts us like bees to the money, right? But let me tell you that the money is not so huge as you think. The mortality of the writers is very high. Only a few get there. But maybe if you go into another market, I went to China and I found out that the Chinese market is as big in terms of numbers, not as big in terms of the equivalent, of course, of the percentage of people reading science fiction. It's still small, but it has a big potential. So I think other markets altogether could play a role. If we take, the English market is there, but there is, I don't know, a French market or a Spanish market or a German market. And as Libya said, it's time that we connect all these dots and try to create a different pattern, because we don't all have to go in one direction. We can go also sideways, from Mexico to Italy, and from Italy to France, and from Turkey to Russia, stuff like that. And then it becomes more interesting. And then we create a mass of stories that become relevant to the global conversation, I think.
And I think what all of you are saying, it's kind of like in the same, it goes into the same direction as to see small presses and magazines as a way to change the dynamics of the market in a way, because instead of waiting for the big publishing companies and the big names and the big agents to dictate what are we reading, what we can do is from the bottom up, we can work for example, as Libia was saying, building communities starting from their own countries, as Francesco said, building relations with other countries through translation, or giving, for example, I'm thinking, I've seen some experiences in this sense where within the Spanish market, a book has been published in Spain, and then with an agreement has been as well published in Latin America, in one of the countries. I think it was La Máquina que hace ping in Spain, did this agreement with Manot in Argentina. And so things like that, like horizontal lines of like a horizontal conversation that kind of like makes a tapestry of cultural links, and kind of like pushes up what was underground. And what the danger is that this is noticed by people on the top, and they try to steal it from you and make it mainstream, which is it's not like mainstream is something bad in itself, but it's kind of like, as some of you mentioned, in my opinion, it takes away a little bit, like it's more like, and not always, but most of the time, fast food, but in terms of books, no? And so that's why I think we are kind of like the safety net that, or it needs to be there to preserve what is us, our identities, our ideas, who can be influenced by others, other cultures. It's okay. I'm a big fan of fusion and hybridization, but in the same time, I see that the movement is from bottom up, and that brings me hope, because I think that kind of attackers where people are really looking for, in terms of experimentation, in terms of creativity, in terms of risking and taking risks. And this is exactly what I wanted to ask you. But feel free, if you want to talk more about what we were just talking, you can all, it doesn't have to be exactly what I proposed to you, but we're talking in our prepping for this panel about the advantages, because we talk about the obstacles we have to overcome, but the advantages of having this kind of initiatives is like, well, you can take risks that big publishing companies can't, because numbers are there, and they have rules that they have to follow, and they have politics that have to follow too. So in my opinion, what I like about what I do in SuperSonic, for example, is the freedom. I can publish whatever I think is best. And this is a great feeling that, I'm sorry, is priceless, to me at least. And again, okay, I am very privileged, and I know that. But because I have the freedom, I wanted to use it to make other people shine. This is how I see editing, and it's how I see it. So I don't know what you think about what is the advantages of running a small press or magazine. Anybody wants to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take. I mean, please go ahead. I'll wait my turn.
Oh, well, if you want to, I can start again. I completely agree. You're free to do whatever the heck you want to. And that is priceless, because actually to have like market depth, like, oh, I have to publish this in order to have more readers or whatever. It's really like a heavy burden, because you are never going to make everybody happy. So you have to, ideally, an editor has to be able to say, this is my bet. I want to give space to this voice, to this text, for whatever reasons that can be super personal, but also can be cultural or whatever. And I think that is really, really a very rich field in which to go and play and move. Now, talking a little bit about what I'm looking that wonderful people that are attending the panel is discussing, that it's kind of related to this. They are talking about the money. And one of the questions of Cristina was about the money and the financing model of small presses. In the case of Odo Ediciones, we are doing stuff thanks to the pre-subscription, like a pre-sale. We can only do the books if people support the project, because we don't have, I always say, I don't have castles and gold, mountains of gold. I wish, but I don't. So I need to ask people to support the project with money and to build community. And in order to do that, I need to build a bridge with the community that is going to read those books. Now, that being said, many people believe that you have to be able to maintain yourself writing. I can say that at least in Mexico and in the experience that I have, it's really, 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 really difficult to live only of your writing. You need to teach, and you need to make master classes, and you need to do workshops, and you need to go to a lot of different places, but you cannot just write, because economically, to live just from your writing, it's kind of a fallacy that capitalism makes us believe, because they want from us to compete. And I need
Can I just say something there? Because it's because some people took a lot of money.
No,
right?
yeah, I'm going there. Like, it's not.
It's the money is accumulated in one part.
It's the system. The problem is the system. The bottom line, the problem is the system. Why? Because if I want to have castles like J.K. Rowling, I have to be a bestseller, and for that I have to do this and I have to do that. And it's like, okay, strip down all that system. How many people do you really know that only lives, that you know, that you are like you are friends with, that only lives by writing? Nobody, like nobody. So my radical point of view and the ground that I take is, because I know people is not going to make money writing science fiction here in Mexico. I am not trying to make money with my little publishing house. Making money in the capitalist sense. I don't mean like everything is free or everything, or people has not the right to receive compensation for their work. They need to receive compensation for their work. But I am not trying to build a market, and I'm not trying to go to a market. I'm trying to make books, and I'm trying to reach people. It's very different from a conceptual.
Why the English market pays more? Why the English market pays more?
Because there is a market, like for starting, because there is a market.
They're taking the money from us.
Well, they're taking the money from us.
With the copyright.
I don't use copyright. I do not use copyright.
But they do. They do.
Can I curse? Can I curse in this panel?
Of course you can.
Copyright. Fuck the fucking copyright. Come on. Like, copyright is evil. Copyright is the late capitalism. Like, I'm gonna block this content and I'm gonna sell it. And no, I don't want that. But what I was trying to say, that it's connected with Francesco and it's not, is like, if we are trying to think in terms of market, we are going to be very frustrated and very sad and very angry. And I am very angry, but I channel that anger and I build different ways of doing things. And I know that I am not going to be a huge market player, but I am not fucking interested in that. You know? Yeah, please, Francesco.
I need to jump in. I need to jump in. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is the misconception. This is the huge misconception, because we're being stripped away by 50, 60 years of capitalism, of royalties, of copyright. When I go to an American author to ask his rights, he sends me to his agent or her agent and says, all right, let's sit down, okay, and talk about money. That happens every single day with professional writer. Why did they manage to do that? Why did they manage to create professional writers only in the US and the UK? Why?
Professional.
They have an industry that is supported with media, with investment, with colonization, with capitalism, and with globalization. Okay? These are the tools that support an American or an English writer just from the start, just because he's born there, right? So if you are not born with this network of investment behind you, 400 years of colonization, 200 years of imperialism, 100 years of publishing industry, you are not in the same starting position. So we don't have a class of writers in Italy. We don't have a class of writers in any other country, except from that country, for those countries that through history, economy, war, cultural domination, media, networking, you name it, have slowly, and not even just so slowly, deprived all the other countries of their cultural scene. Because whenever you go, you see a Marvel superhero that is just there and is just changing the perception of people. So why publishers do have an easy task to publish, an American author? Why do readers want to watch and read that? Is
I
that just
have
blinded?
some thoughts on that. I agree with what you said about the money just going to wrong places, and connects with some of the comments that I've been seeing. One of the reasons I started thinking about Constelación even before I knew Coral or anything was because of American Dirt. Because I saw the controversy around that book, and I was so mad. And like I felt so bad for the people who were actually having to go to talk to Macmillan to see what they could do, like to talk to them, like why are you doing these practices, and why are you still doing this if you're supposedly committed to promoting diversity among not only your writers but also your staff? So my thought were, well, what can someone do from the sidelines and not having to depend on these big publishers? And I think the author got like a ridiculous signing fee, I don't know, like $1 million, and like it was bidded or something. And it went to a novel that wasn't what it was sold like. It wasn't the great American novel about immigration or anything. It wasn't even from a Mexican writer writing as someone experiencing something as a Mexican. So yeah, the money is there, and it's up to them choosing where they're allocating it and what they're promoting. I think it sold like 600,000 copies, and I never read it. I tried. It's probably, maybe it's not even like a super bad book, but it's definitely not what they marketed. But why did it have such success? Because it was marketed that way. Maybe the controversy helped. I don't know, but it's literally them choosing where they're putting their money and how they're spending it. They spent it in barbed wire decorations for an event. So it's literally them choosing where they're spending their money and marketing for something to work. So it isn't that there isn't money. It's that they're choosing to allocate it to certain things because it fits their standard of what could work.
I would like to know what Mazi thinks about this.
For us, the market is still too, I will use the word young to even talk about money. So we don't even get a share of the money at all. Like, it's so difficult getting noticed. Talking about money. So it's a conversation that is being had within South America, North America, and Europe. Africa is basically left behind. We've got so few writers who are getting paid. In the last few years, we've had this conversation about, like, people say discovery of African writing. And I keep saying, what are you discovering? Every other few years, we have been discovered all over again. And then after we are discovered, a couple of books are bought, and then it ends. And then after a couple of years, we are discovered again, and a few writers get their books published abroad. So in Africa, I don't see us being a part of the global publishing where a lot of African writers can claim to make money from their work. Maybe Chimamanda Adichie is maybe just about the only person who I know doesn't do anything other than write, and then that's where she gets most of her money from. Every other writer I know in Nigeria or in Africa have another job that they do, and then they write on the side. A couple of young writers I know are attempting to do that stuff where you say, okay, I am a writer and that's all I do. I don't think they've been very successful at it. They do it for a couple of years and then they go back to doing a 9 to 5 to keep food on the table and keep the soul together. So for us, we are not even part of that conversation. And Omenana, we don't even get money anywhere. We run because we take money from our salaries and then we usually keep the magazine going. We don't even get grants. I think we've gotten grants like once, and it was just selecting stuff that was sent to us by the Section Association America. I don't think so. The conversation is something that I'm just listening. I'm like paying attention, but I know I don't have much to say to that. Maybe in the future, yeah, if we are accepted as a part of this family, writers and publishers feel our work is worthy enough to pay good money, the kind of money I hear being paid for some writers. Yeah, so that's where we are in that conversation.
But can I just add something to the financial model, because of course it's tough. I'm not saying that is not, but what I have experienced, and I quit my previous job to turn into a full-time publisher and writer, and it's pretty difficult. I just had to lower my standards of living, but improve many folds wise my quality of life. So that's a choice, a hard choice. But in terms of the sustainability, let's say we do a lot of book fairs, we talk with each and every person, and there is so much demand of the books I do. I mean, I published the first ever African science fiction anthology in Italian. I published the first ever Turkish science fiction anthology in Italian. I published the first ever Indian science fiction anthology in dual language, English and Italian. I published 4 anthologies of dual language, Chinese and Italian science fiction. The people liked it. The people wanted it. They consider our project one of the best projects, so much so that I've been able to promote it to China and receive money from cultural association, because what we are doing is not commercial. It has a very high value in terms of preserving the biodiversity of the future, because otherwise the risk that we run is to have a monoculture, a mono storytelling, a mono vision, and in the situation of the risk that we run is exactly this, that we are not able to cope with changes, the futures that Cristina talked about. And so along the way, if you do quality and not think about quantity, of course some quantity is of course necessary. I'm not saying that we live on thin air, but if you do consider the quality of your scouting, your research, your translation relevant, you will find some reward in people. And if you talk to them, don't think about the reader. Who is the reader? The reader had a name, an age, a place where he lives, and tastes. I don't consider the reader in terms of the market shares. We need to talk to people. We are small presses. We base our model on human relation, not on marketing. And that's the thing we do. We go on the front line. We talk with hundreds of people on the book fairs, in the conventions, just like we're doing now. So this is the way you change. One person at a time, you change the future.
Exactly. And where you were saying also in terms of the money and the financial model, that Libia was already kind of like talking a little bit also from her part. It's one of the questions that we were preparing also. And there are different models out there. There's not just one model. And some people just do this kind of work voluntarily and just make it self-sustainable, just to not make investing what they have, like Mazi was saying, and having to put from their own salaries to make this happen. But there are also models like we have Patreon, we have crowdfunding, we have pre-sales, like Livia was saying, or just the book fairs and the work with the few specialized or non-specialized libraries in our countries. There are different approaches. So I would like to know, some of you already talk about that, but if in an ideal world, what kind of approach would you think it's more suitable for this kind of initiatives? I personally, in my experience with SuperSonic, I used to do what Mazi was is doing, like trying to allocate a budget to for the expenses to produce the magazine. In SuperSonic, we make a rule that everybody gets paid, even if it's a small amount, if it's a flat fee, but everybody gets paid. That's kind of like the rule that we have, because we wanted to, even if it's small, but we wanted to make to show to everybody that you cannot just work for free, in the sense that what you're doing is valuable, and at least you have to be paid for your work. So at least this is something that we wanted to make sure that we do, because some people were used to just publish in fanzines or or zines online and not getting paid at all. So in the beginning, I remember some people saying, really, you're gonna pay us? Yes. So they were kind of like astonished. And then last year, because of the pandemic, we decided to take a break for a year, and we came back this year. We chose to use Patreon, and so far it's helping us kind of like getting a base of subscribers who are helping us to almost make SuperSonic self-sufficient. I can say right now, it's through the sales and the subscriptions, we are kind of self-sufficient. So we can pay an illustrator for the covers, we can pay for the translation. And so I am happy to report that we are healthy in that sense, but we also had to make concessions, and we used to make, I'm just going to show you one. Even though SuperSonic is a digital magazine, we did one issue to honor Ursula Le Guin, and it's kind of like a book instead of a magazine. So you see, it's very thick, but it was to honor her. So we decided to make something special that would stay forever. So to do this kind of things, you really need to invest a little bit, and we don't do those things anymore. We prefer to lower the number of stories that we do. We do 1 or 2 translation maximum, and we try to also limit the nonfiction. And this is what we do. And so far, it's kind of helping us to stay above the water. I don't know if you think that your own models are kind of going to evolve into something else, or you're happy with what you're having. What are your thoughts?
Constelación is very new, and we funded our first year through Kickstarter. So our ideal model is that we get enough subscriptions to Patreon or the other channels that we have, so we don't have to do a Kickstarter every year. But the thing we did with Constelación too, which I don't know if it was the most sound financial decision, but it was the one we wanted to take, was it would have happened anyway, but we wanted to aim for what we thought was for, first of all, competitive rates. They are equal to or above some paying markets in the US. For translation, a paying rate as well, not as high, because that would be very complicated to match, because it's pretty much every story is double the price, because it's in both languages. So we pay the author and then we pay the translator. But we also wanted the art to be original. We wanted it to be commissioned. We wanted it to be made specific for the magazine, and we wanted. Overall, it was an ambitious project, and we were so blessed to be able to fund the first year. As of now, I think we are going to have to do another Kickstarter for the next year. So that model seems to be. It has worked for a lot of U.S. magazines for a long time, so it might be the one we're going to have to keep using. But our ideal model, obviously, would be that we could sustain ourselves through just subscriptions. I think that is doable. There are magazines that can. I just think it takes a lot of work from a bigger group that's constantly working on marketing and reaching out to people that we still don't have, because like SuperSonic, we're very insistent on trying to pay someone, even if it's token fees, pay everyone except for us, like the co-editors, pay something to everyone who's working on the magazine. But yeah, ideally that's what would work.
Anybody?
So yeah, in other Ediciones, although by the way it's derivated, I don't know, I don't know how to speak. Well, it's inspired by Ursula K. Le Guin's work, The Day Before the Revolution, and also The Dispossessed, and also a lot of her ideas, kind of anarchist ideas, are in the heart of Odo. So we don't have Patreon, we don't have Kickstarter, we have our own system. We are non-profit, which means all the money that enters goes to the books and goes to the editorial. Like, we need to pay the web hosting, we need to pay to the people that makes the books, that makes the proof correction, that etc. So what we did was like kind of copy the model, mixing sort of some stuff from Kickstarter, but especially from Patreon. We were inspired by Chrononauta, the wonderful editorial small house from Spain also. Mm-hmm. And what we do is to have a model in which you can subscribe in two different ways. From 1 year, you have 4 books, and all the activities and all the workshops and all the interaction with each author, because that is our plus, sort of speaking. Like, we made books, but we also made that the community connects with the authors directly during at least 3 months previous to the printing of the book. We print the book. We pay people that makes an ebook, and we published in EPUB and in Mobi and in whatever platform you can read it. And we do not use copyright. We use copy far left, not even Creative Commons. We use a Mexican license that is called Leal, like loyalty should be like, but it's an acronym. So this book is actually already in Odo Ediciones, and you can go and download it, and you can go and make your own compilation, and you can go and make commercialization if you need to and if you want to. You just have to talk with the author, or you just have to chat with me. But we are not blocking the content, and because it's already paid and we already have the books, and people are already receiving the paper books, we made a little bit more, and we are going to reach some bookstores that are not huge stores. We are going local mainly, and also because the ebook is free. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can download it and read it, or even translate it if you want to. You just need to read in Spanish. And that is our bet. Like, we are literally making free books in order to reach the more people. And also, we need cooperation. We need money, of course, because capitalism. So if you want to donate to Odo, you just have to go to Odo Ediciones .mx. I'm gonna put the in the chat, so if somebody can please share it with the public. So you can go to Odo Ediciones, and because our system has no platform, and we didn't want to use the type of technologies that also are more capitalist. You just need to to donate, and you go to be directed to PayPal. That was like the only thing that we cannot escape. And it's very useful, and it's very international, so you can donate from wherever you are, whatever quantity you want, or you can subscribe if you want to be able to be with the authors and receive the books in Spanish, etc., etc. And also, if you donate to Odo Ediciones, we have like a little pig, like a little una alcancía, un chanchito, in order to receive donations.
It's safe for like money.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like a little pig, and that allows us to pay everybody. We pay the author. We don't pay a lot, of course, but we pay the author. We pay the design. We try to compensate everybody because we believe in the work. But the thing is that we're also trying to build bridges with Latin American small houses, and we have big plans for that. So I think so far from April to now, it has been working, and people seems to really respond to this new model that is not capitalist. Somebody in the chat, in the comments, says that writing should not be a hobby, and I completely agree. But the problem is that the system is so fucked up that I cannot be I try to not be inside of the system. I'm trying to work from outside, and that has value in itself. And also, because I don't believe in copyright, I'm not asking my author or my authors to be just exclusive with me or anything. It's like, if you can go and make money in other ways, please go and do it. I just want to support this project because I think it's important to do it. So Daniela L. Guzman, that is a wonderful Mexican author, and she just was part of Clarion West this past edition. It's our first author, and you can read her right now if you download the book. Un tlacuache salvó este libro del fuego. It could be like an opossum save this book from the fire, which is the fire of, I don't know, the destruction of future. It's a speculative fiction, and it's a wonderful book. And our Sigi and our next residence is going to be from the wonderful and marvelous Gabriela Damián Mirabete, and it's going to be the next season in Odo Ediciones. So keep tuned because it's going to be cool. So that is how we are building our project, and eventually we hope we can also just be working on this publishing house. So far, I am not quitting my day job, and my day job is from 9 to 7, and it's something that has nothing to do with literature, but I have to pay the rent. And this is something that I'm doing because I believe in it. And a lot of people that is collaborating with the project has also other types of projects to live, to make money. But we believe in this project and we want to grow. But also we are going slowly. You know, books are slow objects, and books are not commodities, as Ursula said in her.
Excellent. Yes.
So yeah, that's how we are doing stuff.
Very fond of Odo Ediciones, and the idea of artist resident is very, very interesting. I'm noting, I'm taking notes. I don't know if any of you wanted to comment on this one, or because we are kind of like been talking for an hour and a half, believe it or not. It's short for me, but we've been talking a lot. And I want to make sure that everybody can add.
What was the question?
We were talking about the financial models, but you spoke already a little bit about it too.
Yes,
so.
Don't worry.
Let me say something about the model we have for Omenana. So, like Libya, we are also doing something for passion. So it's more for passion than anything else. So when we started off, we said, okay, we are going to pay everybody. So we are paying the writers, we are paying the graphic artist that was working with us, we are paying the editors who initially it was Chinelo and me who were doing it. So we didn't get it paid, or we are paying every other body up until 2019 when we couldn't pay the writers anymore because want to pay the writers, but we felt that the money we were paying the writers wasn't enough. But we still kept paying the editor, we're paying the graphic artist, we're also paying the people who designed the magazine for us, and we're still doing that up till now. Unfortunately, we've not been lucky. Where I said that before, when it comes to funding, not been very lucky. So all the funding that goes into Omenana comes from our own pockets. Like we have to take money from our salaries to like keep it going, pay for the website, pay for everything that we need to do. We have a Patreon page we set up. Unfortunately, it's set up since December 2020. I'm not sure. I think we have only 2 people who have become patrons since then. Just 2 people. At the point we tried to sell the magazine, unfortunately, people weren't buying, and it wasn't something we wanted to keep doing, because at the end of the day, we end up just getting just a couple of hundreds of naira, which is enough to I'm not sure we got up to $10 if you convert the money. So we decided to leave it open again, because keeping it locked behind a paywall sort of defeats the whole purpose of us having a magazine that every young African who likes speculative fiction can go read, and everybody who wants to write can send to. So we decided to keep it open, and that's our major desire, to make sure the magazine remains accessible to everybody, which is why we put it a paywall, because if we do, people who the market or the audience that we are seeking to reach will actually be cut off, because many young people will be able to afford the token that we're asking people to pay to get into the website. So it's still free, it's still open to access. Once in a while, we do a download version where you can click and download the magazine into your phone or as a PDF. We still have those once in a while, but it's free. We're not getting any money. We're not getting any money, and that ties into what I said earlier about us like not being reckoned with, not being respected. So nobody mentions us within the whole. We've been doing this since 2014, and we've been steady. But I don't think people tend to mention us a lot when it comes to mainstream speculative fiction as a magazine that is out there. Even though we're the only one doing it from Africa, we don't get any funding and all of that stuff. So we want to do this subscriber thing, but unfortunately, PayPal doesn't pay Africa. So I can pay money to anybody anywhere else in the world with my PayPal account, but people can pay me. So we are also suffering from that too. That's very, very huge discrimination. Like it's like we can take your money, but we can give you money. And that's remains up to today. So these are some of the issues that we have when it comes to funding. But we still intend to be here and push as hard as we can into the future and make sure that it's still accessible to everybody. Yeah, so that's where we are.
And
Can
we're
I
going to
make
be
a
here to
proposal?
support you, huh?
Oops.
He got,
Oh, it just up.
okay.
Oh. Can I make a proposal for the end?
Yes, sure. Let's
All
go.
right. So when in
I can't even think
2019,
about the financial models because, like I said,
it didn't listen. Got
Okay. Mazi, we lost you for a
froze.
second.
Yeah, more than.
Maybe
All right.
you should turn off your camera. Maybe it will help.
Okay. Oh,
Maybe
it
he will
dropped.
come back soon.
So when I in 2019, when Future Fiction won the European Science Fiction Award as Best Publisher, I went on the stage, I took the award and said, I'm really, really happy, and I'm waiting for the time when this European award can be at the WorldCon, and when an African award can be at the WorldCon, and when a Latin American award can be at the WorldCon, and when an Asian Science Fiction Award can be at the WorldCon. Because the WorldCon is supposed to represent the world, not just one single or two, let's say, awards. So then, after some years, I've seen that a very nice proposal was made of the Rosetta Award because it translates the stories. But then again, yes, it goes in the right direction, but it translates the stories into English. And again, we are feeding our, beloved culture. So my proposal is, what about sitting together, us from non-English countries, or at least, from non-English world in a way, in a broader sense, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Chinese, I don't know, Russian and German, and share some stories, 1 or 2 stories every year, and we translate in other languages, and we give a kind of award to a couple of stories that are then translated into the other languages. How
The
would
future
that,
or worse.
yeah, a kind of future awards, how would that sound? I mean, we have 1 year to select a story. We take it easy. We don't have to rush. But
We can
what
do
we
it.
provide, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to build that network. I mean, the idea is that we need to, go and
Support each other. Yes, we need to support each other.
yes, the problem is dividi et impera, they divide
Yeah,
and conquer.
and
So
conquer.
we get united and we try to build networks, at least with the short stories. I know that the novel is pretty clear, but the short stories is not difficult to translate 15, 20 pages from one language to another. Come on. We could do it.
It's a great idea, and it gives us hope for the future and for to make things a little bit more. I don't know. Fair is not the right word, but just in
Just,
the
yes.
sense that right, because it's so much differences between the how do you call it, Francesco, the beloved culture that is the prominent one, and the
Yes.
rest of us, right? And there's so
Yeah.
many, so the
I
gap
mean,
is so big that we
think,
have to make some, we
yeah.
have to be something to make it shorter, right, to make it more, yeah, fair in a way, or just. So I'm on board anytime. If you guys need me, you know where I am.
Okay.
And let's we have to oh, we have to leave for the next panel. There's going to be very interesting, a panel in
Sure.
Spanish,
Yeah.
Panamericana. I want to tell everybody, please please watch it, because it's going to be great. So if you wanted to say something, just to sum up everything, or to say something about what you're going to do next, very quickly, please, you have, the stage is yours. No,
I think
nobody.
I think I already talk about, like,
Okay.
tuning for Mexicona, Mexicona.mx, tuning in Odo Ediciones.mx. Donate if you can. Read what are what we are publishing, and keep tuned for the next panel, because it's going to be great. And thank you for this invitation and this wonderful conversation.
So for us, we at we're at omenana.com. That's OMENANA.com. So just come look at us, check out the work we do. We make sure all the writers from Africa, the African diaspora, have a space where they can tell their story in their own way. So we're there and we're waiting. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You can find Constelación Magazine in constelacionmagazine.com or revista constelacion.com. The site is both in English and Spanish. So yeah, thank you so much. This panel has been great. I haven't seen Cristina and Libia for a while, so I'm super happy I got to see them now. So yeah, thank you, and yes, let's work together, all of us, please,
Yes.
to change
Yeah.
the landscape a little.
Yes, it's been a great panel, really. And my only advice is to
Thank you for
read,
having me.
read out of your comfort zone, and
Yes.
do scout and read science fiction in translation. There's a treasure out there.
Give it a try, and don't forget that FutureCon, it's not just a convention, it's a movement, a global movement where everybody has a space to be. So we hope to see you not just in the next panel, but hopefully in FutureCon 2022. So thank you very much for tuning and see you out there. Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
William Gibson once said, "The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed." The time has come to draw attention to science fiction stories written all over the planet. Stories made of different languages, colors, shapes, hopes, and beliefs. The future happens everywhere. That's why we are here.